Today I have a confession to make, and yesterday will be one of those days I'm not going to forget for a long while. I WhatsApped one of my clients, the finance manager, wanting to find out about a certain payment, how far it was. And he came back and said, I have not seen your invoice from the user department. And I quickly inquired from the CEO what was the issue. And then, because I remember sending my invoice sometimes back, beginning of or end of last month. Now, and I also shared the email that I had forwarded to the user department to the CEO, just in case there could be some internal problem that I'm not aware of. And the CEO was quickly able to sift through that email, and the document I had forwarded, because there were two documents that were needed. There was a last piece of work that was required, which was actually, and then there was also the invoice. So the head of the email was very clear. It was about the invoice of January, but the subject matter and what was attached, which I attached, was actually the final piece of work that was needed, and I never attached the invoice. In my mind, I assumed I attached the invoice, and therefore that's why I was inquiring from finance, because from my knowledge and practice of the organization, normally they would be able to start clearing your invoices from the 7th, 8th, or the 9th day of the following month. So when the CEO actually picked up the problem, I quickly issued an apology, and I also copied the user department. So today I would wish us to talk about communication. And communication, and especially email communication. Allow me to remind you of what you call the communication equation. Research is showing today that the average worker in an office is handling emails for about 6.3 hours every day. That is almost like 3/4 of their working hours within a day. Therefore, email has become, and it could be emails, it could be WhatsApp messages, it could be you are texting. There is a lot of messages going through the e-platform every day. So the communication equation speaks about 3 types of communication. There is what you call verbal, non-verbal, and written. Verbal, of course, is dependent on your tone. Right now I'm using verbal communication. It is dependent on the clarity of your tone, of course, and also what you call mother tongue or country interference. Some people say it is the water interference, or some people circled more than the others. So there is the heaviness of the tongue depending on the community or the area you come from. And you hear of American English, you hear of Australian English, you hear of the British English. And also, the verbal communication is also dependent on your verbal expressiveness. The second type of communication in the and verbal communication, 40% of the message people hear when you are talking, it comes from the tonality of your voice and the clarity of your voice. The second type of communication, which is still under communication equation, is what you call the non-verbal. Non-verbal research has shown 55% of the information you speak about is carried by the non-verbal. Your gestures, your postures, your confidence, your dress code and grooming, your way of posture and body, your way, eye contact or lack of it. All this is part of what you call non-verbal. About 55% of the information is carried by that. And then finally, where I want to dwell more is the written communication, and especially emails. There are some etiquettes that you can work around, which you can look at when you talk about email communication. The first one is always ensure your subject line is very clear. My subject line in this particular case of the email I sent was talking about claim January 2020, the invoice for January 2022. Of course, the subject was very clear, and that's why my mind was very clear that my subject was clear, and therefore I had done my role, and I had already put across. Of course, the user department manager, when he received it, because he required the final piece of work, for him, I think he just assumed he was happy with his work had been delivered, and maybe never looked at the subject line to check why is it talking about an invoice and yet there is no attached invoice. So be very careful on the subject line. The second thing that you need to check on email and even WhatsApp, especially for an official communication, is spell check your message. The last 1 month, I have received 2 emails from major organizations in this country. One of them is from a power company, and the other one is from a human consultant company, which is of an international reputation and feel, and both of them had spell checks, and they had come from middle managers. I picked up both of the emails, and I raised it up, the issue, in the following communication. And in fact, both of them said, the seniors in both of who are copied said that maybe their managers were writing those emails in a hurry. So spell check your email so that you don't have those mistakes that come through. The other important etiquette rule of email writing is ensure you reply to your emails. I know we received some organizations and some managers and some leaders, you receive 101 emails, but it is good etiquette just to reply, acknowledge you have received the email unless it was not intended for you, and either because there is an action, call to action, CTA, that is required of you, say, I'm working on this and I'll get back to you. Another rule of email communication: do not copy people who are not necessary. Not everybody who has been copied in the email, if you feel they are not needed according to where you are coming from, you may leave them out on the reply to all. I was dealing with this power company because it was an issue about connection of some rural families. My family in the rural area, my father involved as well. I noted at one of the emails that was sent, there were 3 people who were copied, who I felt, from where I was coming from, the little information I knew about the organization, that they were put there just for red tapeism. And when I was replying, I didn't copy them. And in fact, things flowed when they were not in the picture, because the more people who are likely to be in the picture, the more you bring gridlock. Another very important rule that I learned in my experience yesterday when I emailed, raising a concern about my payment, is do not send an email on the flip. Do not send an email when you are feeling a little bit feisty, a little bit angry. Take your time. In fact, if you feel angry, write the email, put it in a draft folder, look at it after 1 hour or 2 hours to just see whether that message is still the message you want to send out. That is very, very important, of critical importance. We've said double check also the title, the headline, double check, and also double check the email. Last, important rule that you need to carry is always ensure that you have put what you call the signature block below there. Where is the email coming from? Don't assume that people know. Some people may not have, your address in their addresses in the emails. So it's always good to put your name, your title, the organization you work for, your contact details, just in case, and it's your full name, they may want to come through or come back to you so that you can jog their mind. Lastly, a bonus rule: ensure that you write your email message before you write the addresses, because it can, through accident, you may find you have sent your email to people who are not required, or you didn't finish your email and you have hit the send button before time. I want to say this: if you want to communicate better and avoid any office war, follow these etiquette rules.